The second book for tonight's recording session is Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. Look at the little babe. Look at that Scarlet A right up there. This book I read as part of the same class I read Walden for, or reread Walden for. It is the American Literature class from leading up to the Civil War. This book is one that's often read in high schools. I never read it in high school, so this is my first time reading it. But a lot of people are very familiar with it, at the very least. And really the big question surrounding this book is, why in the world do people read it during high school? There is such high-level concepts and things that are so above and beyond the simplicity of what we think as 15, 16, 17-year-olds. I was like, why do we read this? For that answer, for the reason why I think we read it at a high school level, is because The Scarlet Letter is a fantastic exercise in symbolism and reading beyond the text. There is 1,000 symbols in here. We got the rose, we got the scarlet A, we got the color red in general, we got pearl as a whole symbol, in fact. We got the comet that shows up, we got the deaths that occur. Everything in this book is a symbol of some sort, which is a great exercise for the high school level literature course. With that being said, to understand fully what this symbolism means and to get out of it, I don't know if you can read it at a high school level. It's complex in a way that it doesn't mean to be. This book is so simple. It really is. It goes pretty much, there's no tricks to this. You find out fairly early on the big twist, right? There's nothing that you need a big brain to read and understand the basic story and the basic structure of this novel. But in order to get the subtext of it, massive improvement, right? You need to be able to think in such a more diverse way than you do just to get the story of the Scarlet Letter. There's one scene in particular that really influences the way that you read this book. There is a scene in which Roger Chillingworth comes into the bed in which the minister is sleeping, and Chillingworth moves the coat or the shirt that the minister's wearing. Fuck, what's the minister's name? Oh god. Oh man. What is the Arthur Dimmesdale? Arthur Doug Dimmesdale Dimmadome. Anyways, good old Dimmesdale Dimmadome. So Chillingsworth moves the shirt of Dimmesdale, the minister, and he sees something. He sees something that he's taken aback by. And that is the real conclusive thing to show that Chillingsworth now understands that the minister is the father of Pearl. Sorry for spoilers, by the way. I don't know if the book was written 200 years ago. Spoiler alert. But he sees something, and whatever that something is completely frames the way that you read this book. It completely frames it it tells you everything else about this book, right? Because if he moves it, and Chillingsworth has, and the minister Dimmesdale has, some God-given A that's kind of burned onto his chest, right? Now you're automatically reading this from a supernatural, Puritan fate sort of structure, right? That you're immediately reading this book, and that's how that's influences the rest of the book, had the way that the rest of the book had been read. It influences how the future of the book will be read. It influences that entirely. But if he opens it up and it's an A carved by Dimmesdale himself, then it's a book about guilt and shame and fear and society's expectations and all of that, right? But if he opens it up and he sees absolutely nothing and he's just taken aback by it, then it's just Chillingsworth going crazy. And then you maybe fall on the side of, you get to later in the book where people are like, some of the old timers are like, yeah, the minister opened up his thing while he was dying and there was absolutely nothing there. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. He was just doing this to save this poor woman. And then you end up falling into that line because, like, well, yeah, there was nothing, right? This is just the delusion of a whole bunch of people who are fucking tired or some shit, right? This one scene completely influences the way that the rest of this book is read. It's also why the Scarlet Letter, despite having a million adaptations in like film, you just can't do it, because whatever you try to do for this one scene completely influences the entire story. But yeah, Scarlet Letter, I mean, it's a good book, right? I enjoyed reading it. It took me a week to read. I read in 2 sittings. If anything, the hardest part about this book is the custom house introduction that Nathaniel Hawthorne put in, which doesn't even, it kind of frames the book in a way. It kind of tells you the background of the book and whatnot, but it doesn't help you in any way. It's just there. Yeah, Scarlet Letter, I know this is a much shorter one than the previous one, but I would probably rank it a 6, maybe a 7. I'll go with the 7 on the high side. Who knows? I'm not keeping track of how I rank these. It's a really good book. Even if you're gonna, even if you read this at the high school level, hopefully you got something out of it. This is definitely something that warrants a second read through as an adult, or just as a more sophisticated reader. Yeah. My favorite character by far is Pearl. Pearl's great. But yeah, that's Scarlet Letter, Nathaniel Hawthorne.